Hey, what's up everybody? It's the Hyphenate here, and today we're gonna talk about the Moza Slypod. Now, I had already worked on a review video that I took a couple days on and was super in depth and spoke very highly about the Moza Slypod. I've had it for about a couple weeks, and at first I was really in love with it. I was really enjoying how simple it is to use, but the reason I'm talking right now instead of showing you my original edit is because I started to notice a few things that kind of really brought this down a lot compared to what I thought it was at first. So first, let me explain. As I was about to finish up and put out the Slypod review that I originally did, I looked at a lot of my sample footage more closely. And here I have about a 42, 45 inch monitor. And as I really started to watch it in full screen, I started to notice things that I didn't really notice on the camera screen. And one of which from my original Slypod that I had received was once it hit the middle of the extension, there was like this wobble, this shake where the camera or the head of it would actually move. And I couldn't really tell why that was happening. And I think what it is the extension rod that sticks out. There is some wiggle room when it's off or not in motion. Now, when it starts to move, it's supposed to lock on tighter and not have any movements whatsoever. But it did consistently. Every time it was extending and it got to that middle point, it always shifted. And that happened whether I went in fast, slow, went straight, had an angle. Anytime I did it, that happened. And I contacted Moza about it and let them know. Well, I ended up getting another unit to see if maybe I had a defective unit. And this new unit does not have that, which is great. Now, from the beginning to the end, it actually really is smooth. It looks great for the most part. But the beginning and the end has that wobble now. So as soon as you start it, there's a wobble and then it starts going and it's smooth. When it hits the end, it has a little wobble, stops. And right now I'm actually filming this on the Moza Slypod on auto loop mode where it's just going back and forth. And if you pay attention to the edges of the screen, especially if you watch this on a bigger screen, something bigger than your phone, if you watch this on like, let's say a 20-inch monitor, you'll see when it comes to that beginning or when it gets to the end or the start points, there's a wobble still. But before it was really bad with the other Slypod that I had because it was in the middle of the slide. So pretty much any slide I did was not usable. Now with this one, going from start to finish, shaving off maybe about 1.5 seconds from the beginning and from the end now gives me a great slide to use. So that I'm very happy with as far as that one slide. What does suck is now this auto loop kind of doesn't really work the way I wanted it to work. I had done some podcast episodes where I had the auto loop on, and to me that was actually really dope for the podcast. I really enjoyed that because it just gave it some nice and a little extra dynamic to the video of my podcast. Pretty much it was a static shot, but just slowly I had it at its slowest setting, just going in, going out, and it just added a little bit more flavor to it. But now seeing this kind of small shift when it gets to that beginning and the end kind of ruins it for one of the other things that I really like to shoot is music videos. And this shot like this coming back and forth is great for music videos. But now it has to, like if I'm gonna use any clips from this, I can't do anything from the beginning to the end. I can't get it to push in and back out in one shot. I have to chop those parts off. Now with the podcast that I do it very slowly. I had the slowest setting. So now with this one, even though there's a little jerking motion, beginning and end, it's not really bad for the podcast or for interviews on a slow setting. But if you're doing something a little faster, like even like this speed right here, that jerky motion, beginning and end, it does not look good. So those were the main things that I first started having issues with the original. Now with this second model this second unit. And the third issue that I'm starting to have, or that I'm noticing, is when you're doing like macro shots or you're doing very close-up shots, you do notice the steps. Because essentially the slider, it's electronic, so it's pretty much turning off, turning on, turning off, turning on. And depending on how many times it turns on and off in a long slide will actually really dictate how smooth it looks to you. So this one I think does 280 steps, I believe. I think it's 1 millimeter per step. And if you're doing wide shots like this, it looks great. It looks fantastic. It doesn't look like it's choppy. But if you do very close-up shots, like the ones I'm showing you now, you will notice that choppiness if you're viewing it on a big screen. If you're viewing it on your phone, it's almost not perceivable. Even if you're looking at the back of a screen of a camera, it's not really noticeable. But for me, I've already noticed it. So for me, any professional work that has to do with macro, like anything tight product shots or anything like that, I can't use it for that. Now for YouTube stuff, it's not a big deal. Most people won't care. But those are pretty much really big flaws within this system. Now, I think the Slypod has a lot of potential. I think that they have a very unique item. And one thing that I really like about the Slypod is that it has no track. So you can actually get these really cool, unique shots because it extends outward and the camera's at the end. So you can actually be very close up on different products or surfaces or anything. Pretty much anything you can really think of, it has a very unique style to it because you can get angles that you probably couldn't do with the slider as easily. So I really like that, but for me, it has a lot of potential, but it has a lot of downfalls. And for that reason, I can't really recommend the Moza Slypod for 500 bucks. I feel like what Moza really needs to do is add more steps so that way it's less choppy. I think that they need to figure out a way to make that extension rod not have any wiggle room whatsoever, whether it's on or off, because that is really killing a lot of the potential with auto looping, and even just start and stop, you're losing a second and a half per shot. It's kind of whack. And the other big thing is that using this as a monopod doesn't even really work because it's so short. Instead of that wooden handle that you attach to the bottom, maybe a monopod that attaches to it where it has like, it can extend for maybe another 3 feet. That way, when you screw that on, the Slypod as a monopod can raise up higher and you can really use it as a monopod. Right now, it's way too short to be able to use it as a monopod. So those are my main gripes with it. So yeah, there you guys have it. So overall, I don't think that this Slypod is worth spending 500 bucks. It has a lot of room for improvement and it needs those improvements in order for it to really be something that I think people will be extremely happy with. But I think it's close. I think they can really fix this soon. Maybe with a different version. I don't think firmware will be able to fix this, but who knows, maybe. For the shots that you do get between that beginning and end, on wide shots that are not close up, I'm definitely pretty happy with those. And I will be using the Slypod for a lot of other shots like that. But there you guys have it. That's the review. Please drop a like on this video. Drop a comment below if you have any questions. And please make sure to subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming soon. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.